So in the gospel today, we meet the Pharisees and we hear about the Sadducees. And we have in the New Testament times when Jesus walked the earth, the Jewish nation was divided in many different ways. And they were divided into the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Essenes and the Zealots. Not exactly like we have Protestants and Catholics and Mormons, but something like that, where they had things in common. They had the temple in common, and they had parts of the Old Testament in common. The Pharisees were particularly interested in keeping the law. And in the Old Testament, there were 613 commandments. 613. And so their emphasis was on knowing these 613 commandments and keeping these 613 commandments. And if there was ever a kind of conflict, making sure they kept the more important commandments. And so this is the mindset that they come to Jesus with. And Jesus tells them that all 613 commandments, every commandment, every law, every directive of our governor, everything has to come down to love. Our obedience is a matter to the law of God, is a matter of what? Of just keeping the rule? He would say no. It is law, it is love. And so he quotes the Bible. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Now, most of you are familiar with the fact that in another version of the gospel, that from what we heard today, somebody asks a very good question. And who is my what? Who is my neighbor? I think we could also ask, and what does it mean to love? And what does it mean to love? Well, the first thing is that there is a priority in love. And it was love God first, right? And that love sets our understanding of how we love our neighbor. I've told this story before, and forgive me because it's something of an unsettling story, but it's true, and it makes my point very clearly. After Hurricane Katrina, there were many refugees from Mississippi and Louisiana that scattered throughout the Southeast, right? Some of you all might have been among that number. Well, there was a tremendous outpouring of love and compassion. I was talking to a friend of mine, a priest friend of mine, who went up to central Mississippi, and he was well taken care of, adopted by a family up there that brought in, gave him things, and was just amazed by the generosity and the hospitality that he encountered. I would say those people were living the command of God. Well, somebody else told me about a sign that they read in Arkansas, and I know this is just strange, but it was an abortion clinic, and it said, "Free abortions for Katrina refugees." Were they trying to love? Were they trying to do something nice? Were they giving what they had? But was that love? No, it wasn't. It was misguided. It was distorted. And it is the very distortion of love, of self-love even, that gets us in trouble. So we must love God first. And what does it mean to love God? And I'm going to get a little tiny bit technical as I finish this homily today. But to love God is to have the same will as God. When Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he said what? Not my will be done, but what? your will be done. And to seek in our soul to have the will of God. And when we have the will of God, then we love God. And when we have the will of God, then we know how to what? Love our neighbors. So my brothers and sisters, we don't worry about 613 commandments, but we do strive to love God and to love our neighbor. And we are in a confused world, and so we pray today with that beautiful first reading I didn't touch on, and Pope St. Pius X, who had tremendous love, like I said, of the Bible. So why don't we strive to know the command of God, to know the will of God, to love God, and to love our neighbor.